And because he's like a rock, only dumber, he immediately goes out and drives while smoking dope. He gets arrested. And he came before you for sentencing. Do you remember what sentence you gave him?
I do, and my recollection of the facts is slightly different. My recollection is his DUI arrest was after my sentencing, but regardless, you are correct, he had the DUI.
What you're about to watch is one of those moments in Congress that makes you stop and ask a very uncomfortable question. Who is our justice system really protecting? In this hearing, Senator John Kennedy confronts a judicial nominee over a sentencing decision that, frankly, shocks the conscience. We're talking about a case involving the sexual assault of a 93-year-old Alzheimer's patient, and a sentence that many Americans would consider unbelievably light. Now, this isn't about politics. This isn't about left or right. This is about accountability, moral clarity, and whether judges truly grasp the gravity of the power they hold. Senator John Kennedy does what very few people in Washington are willing to do anymore. He says the quiet part out loud, and he refuses to sugarcoat injustice. If you believe judges should be held to the highest standards, if you believe victims deserve more than legal excuses, and if you think congressional oversight still matters, you'll want to watch this all the way through. This is Congress Lens. I'm Audrey. If you value honest reactions to what really happens in Congress, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what they won't show you anywhere else. Now, let's watch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Wildheimer, am I saying your name right?
You are, thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Who is Brian Labus, L-A-B-U-S? Is that name ring a bell?
Brian Labus, if I am remembering,
Labus.
if I am remembering correctly, since I had 2 years in criminal, about 2,000 cases assigned to me, I believe he was the first human trafficker case we had in Montgomery County. Am I remembering that correctly, Senator?
Well, he was 25 years old. He was a nursing assistant.
Oh, that's a different case. I do recall that one. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, nursing home. He sexually assaulted one of the patients. She had Alzheimer's. Do you remember how old she was?
I do not remember, but I do know she needed to be in a nursing home and was incapacitated.
She was 93 years old. He's 25. He gets her alone. She's got Alzheimer's, and he molests her. This meathead made bail, and because he's like a rock, only dumber, he immediately goes out and drives while smoking dope. He gets arrested. And he came before you for sentencing. Do you remember what sentence you gave him?
I do, and my recollection of the facts is slightly different. My recollection is his DUI arrest was after my sentencing, but regardless, you are correct, he had the DUI. This was a negotiated sentence in this case.
What sentence did you give him?
I do not recall the terms of the negotiation. I do remember it was a negotiated sentence, and I do have...
You gave him 11 months and 15 days, didn't you, for assaulting this woman?
If that is what your records show, I have no reason to disagree with that.
And he grinned, according to the news reports. Grinned at you. You remember that?
I do not recall that. I do have recollections of this case, and if I may, Senator, it is a case in which the Commonwealth had...
Yes, ma'am, but I've got to... I don't want you to take all my time telling me about the case, because I've looked at the case. For the DUI, after this meathead assaults a 93-year-old Alzheimer patient, you gave him 11 months and 15 days. For the DUI case, you gave him 3 days to 6 months.
Senator, the DUI was not in front of me. I was out of the criminal division by then, and I believe that went to a judge that took my cases when I was transferred to the civil division.
Ms. Perry, tell me the difference between res judicata and collateral estoppel.
Collateral estoppel is also known as issue preclusion. Res judicata is also known as claim preclusion. In issue preclusion, the question is whether the parties have previously litigated to their merits and finality the same issue, in which case they would not be allowed to relitigate the issue. In claim preclusion, the question is similar, whether the parties have litigated to finality on the merits claims, and they would not be allowed to relitigate those.
Okay. Tell me the legal meaning of present sense impression.
Present sense impression is an exception to the hearsay rule. And in present sense exception cases, it's the general idea behind the exception is that a person is unlikely to lie if they are simply giving their present recollection of exactly what is occurring as it is occurring. And therefore, those statements are allowed to be used in evidence, even though they are, by definition, hearsay.
Very good. Tell me, what is, we all pay taxes on income. I know you do because the FBI checked. They do a thorough background check. And I do too. What is income?
Well, the IRS regulations are extremely complex when it comes to
what is income?
describing income, but basically it is anything of value that you receive throughout the year. So it could be gratuities, it could be wages.
Well, what if I'm asking you how you go about analyzing this. Let's suppose Senator Durbin starts a new company and he takes it public. And I decide to buy some stock because I believe in Dick Durbin. And I buy it at 10. And it goes to 20. And I'm feeling all warm and toasty. But I don't sell it. I want to because I think it's going to go to 30 because I believe in Senator Durbin. Can government tax me even though I haven't sold it?
I am by no means a tax expert, and I would like no one to rely upon this tax advice. My understanding is that would be an unrealized capital gain, and you would be taxed upon it at the time that it is realized. But again, I am not a tax law expert.
Why is that? I mean, what's the basis for that?
Why am I not a tax law expert?
What's the basis for that?
I believe the basis for that is that those are somewhat imaginary gains that can rise or fall as the market rises or falls. And so they tax you upon it at the time that you actually realize that interest.
Okay. Gentlemen, I'm sorry I'm out of time. I didn't get to ask you questions, but good luck to you.
Thank you, Senator. Judge Weilheimer, do you want to explain the sentencing in that case?
Thank you, Senator. When we have cases in which there is a guilty plea, in a case like the Labus case, which I do have a specific recollection of, I would often ask for a sidebar and ask for a justification for me accepting the negotiated guilty plea. There have been times that I have rejected negotiated guilty pleas. In that case, there were evidentiary insufficiencies on behalf of the Commonwealth. And when that occurs, it is important for me to make sure that the crime is recognized, and the effect on the victim is recognized, even if it might not be to the same extent as if someone would have been found guilty after a jury and the sentencing would have been exclusively up to me. This at least brings closure to the victim's family, and it brings closure, a recognition of the crime. And for that reason, in this case, I accepted the negotiated guilty plea.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the members of the panel. Quick logistic.
All right, now that we've watched the full exchange, let's talk about what really happened here. First, Senator John Kennedy was not being theatrical. He was being exact. He laid out the facts of the case slowly, clearly, and deliberately, because when you hear them plainly, they're disturbing. A 25-year-old nursing assistant sexually assaulted a 93-year-old woman with Alzheimer's disease, someone who was incapacitated, defenseless, and entrusted to professional care. That alone should stop any reasonable person in their tracks. And yet, when Senator Kennedy asked Judge Weimer about the sentence, 11 months and 15 days, the response wasn't outrage, regret, or moral clarity. It was procedural distancing. We heard phrases like negotiated plea, evidentiary insufficiencies, and closure for the family. But Senator John Kennedy cut through all of that legal fog and focused on the core issue. Was justice actually served? This is where Senator John Kennedy deserves credit. He didn't allow the conversation to drift into abstract legal theory. He didn't let technical explanations soften the reality of what happened to that victim. And he didn't pretend that a plea deal magically erases the responsibility of a judge to say, this punishment fits the crime. When Kennedy pointed out the leniency, the timing, and even the defendant's reported grin in court, he was voicing what millions of Americans instinctively feel. Some crimes are so heinous that leniency itself becomes an injustice. And notice something else. Senator Kennedy didn't attack Judge Weimer's intelligence. In fact, he later tested Judge Weimer's legal knowledge, residential judicata, collateral estoppel, hearsay exceptions, tax law hypotheticals, and acknowledged competent answers. This wasn't a smear. This was a character test. Being a judge isn't just about knowing legal definitions. It's about judgment. Moral judgment. Real-world judgment. And Senator John Kennedy made it very clear that knowing the law is not the same as honoring justice. The most telling moment comes at the end, when Judge Weimer explains that accepting the plea deal provided closure. But here's the hard truth Senator Kennedy is highlighting without even saying it outright. Closure without proportional accountability is not justice, it's paperwork. This hearing is a reminder of why Senate confirmations matter. Lifetime appointments matter. And why senators like John Kennedy, who are willing to be blunt, uncomfortable, and unapologetic, play a critical role in exposing decisions that would otherwise be buried under legal language. You don't have to agree with Senator John Kennedy on everything to recognize this. In this moment, he stood up for victims, not excuses. And that's exactly what Congress should be doing more of. This is Congress Lens. I'm Audrey, and we'll keep watching what happens in those rooms, so you don't have to rely on spin.